All right. So we know as internal communicators, one of the biggest tasks that we must manage is change. Every company has to manage change, whether it's big or small, external, internal, mergers, acquisitions, IPOs, leadership changes, you name it, the list goes on. That's why I think the next session will be highly valuable for any internal communicator. I'm sure you're all familiar with General Electric, or as we commonly know them as GE. And you might have heard that in 2021, GE went through a big change. They split into 3 distinct publicly traded companies. You can only imagine how massive this change must have been. So our next session is a discussion that will feature 3 amazing panelists from GE, which will be moderated by Staffbase's very own, the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Corbin, Principal Strategy Advisor. So over to you, Jeff.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone based on where you're sitting right now. I'm Jeff Corbin. I'm Principal Strategic Advisor at Staffbase, and it's my true pleasure today to have this opportunity to introduce you to and to chat with 3 amazing communications professionals from a company that I'm sure you're all familiar with. A great iconic company called General Electric. In the work that I do in strategic advisory at Staffbase, I have the opportunity to consult and work with our largest of enterprise customers. And I had this opportunity with GE, which maybe you may be aware. It was just a few weeks ago that it became 3 separate publicly traded companies: GE Healthcare, GE Aerospace, and GE Vernova, which is the energy businesses of the former GE. In the case of GE, I had the opportunity to work with each of these companies and helping them to implement their new staff-based communications platform, and also to be part of the major transformation that took place over the past few years. And I could tell you, having been in the communications industry for quite some time now, this was definitely one of my career-defining moments. So thank you all. Thank you, GE, for giving Staffbase this opportunity. It also gave me an opportunity to really experience and to see firsthand how employee communications and technology did play a significant role in allowing this transformation and facilitating this transformation. So without further ado, it's my real pleasure to be able to introduce you to Holly Roloff from GE Healthcare, Taylor Sullivan from GE Aerospace, and Sarah Sampson from GE Vernova. Thank you again for agreeing to be here, for spending the time. We really, really appreciate it. I thought to kick things off, just to get started, that maybe each of you could spend a minute or two talking about your background, how you got involved in internal communications, how you ended up at your various GE company now.
I can start. I'm Sarah. I am the leader of internal channels and operations for GE Vernova. I started my communications career at a PR agency. So I was there mostly focused on external and social media. And then when I came to GE a little over 5 years ago, I started at GE Aerospace, and that was my first internal communications role, supporting the sourcing function. And it was a different beast. It was totally different from external communications. Lots of different challenges that I didn't foresee. And then since then, I've bounced around a couple times within GE at the software company, which is now part of GE Vernova, and then into my current role. But you may not think that internal comms gets to be creative. It sometimes gets monotonous with HR communications and things like that. But it's really a fun place to be, and there's a lot of creativity in it as well. So I love it. I love it more than external. And I know my colleagues might feel the same way, might not feel the same way.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Who wants to go next? Holly, how about you?
Sure, I'll go next. Holly Roloff from GE Healthcare. So I started my career in public relations and integrated marketing agencies before coming to the inside at GE Healthcare. So my whole client side has been at GE Healthcare, and I've been here more than 13 years. And for the majority of my career, I was doing both internal and external communications, supporting whether it be a region or a specific business segment, and focused on that internal audience and the direct external audiences related to that part of the business. And I really enjoyed it. And it was right around in a month or so leading up to our transition, our spin from General Electric Corporate, that I got an opportunity to work with the enterprise-wide internal communications team and be solely dedicated on internal communications. And I really think that background in external communications, as well as working around the company and building my network, has made me a better internal communicator.
Awesome. And Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I began my career actually in sales. So I had quite a focus on growth and customer retention, and the customer facing aspect of that job was really interesting. And eventually I found myself at GE Aviation, now GE Aerospace. It was a really interesting time to join the company for me. A couple years, it's been 5 years, believe it or not. And now that I had such a impactful transition into GE Aerospace, I had the opportunity to work on a variety of different projects that crossed my desk, between crisis communication, community relations, site communications, etc. That opportunity to kind of dip my toes into all sorts of different bodies of water has really been a beneficial experience for my career. A lot of professional development opportunities, and certainly a fantastic team to work with and to learn from. But now I find myself as in a similar role to Sarah at GE Vernova, but I'm the communications editorial manager and our content and channels manager. So I am kind of the owner of all things, all employee communications as it relates to, the methods in which we reach our audiences, and our strategy and campaigns around those the messages. So I am really pleased to be on the team that I'm on. It's been such a wonderful experience, and I'm really proud of the internal communications world. It's a great role. So
Awesome. Well, congratulations to each of you on accomplishing something that I think several years ago, probably in your eyes and many people's eyes, would have been unimaginable. This large organization, General Electric, that has been around since I think this is correct, 1892. It's a long time. Now 3 separate publicly traded companies. I'm sure the folks who are listening in today would be really interested to just understand what took place. From your perspective, having been in communications with this larger GE corporation, what was your personal experiences in wow, tomorrow or soon we're going to be a independent company?
One thing that I realized that I would just add to that statement is that it was definitely like a gigantic cross-functional team effort. It's, I think, much bigger than just communications, but I think we'll get to where the value of communications really has such an impact on a big transition like this, or such a gigantic project. Communications is really pivotal, but there's a lot of cross-functional collaboration, and again, a really, really great learning experience.
Yeah, I'll add to that and just say, I think when the split was announced, a lot of us were kind of like, oh my gosh, like it surprised a lot of us. And I think it's probably fair to say a lot of us were like, am I going to still be here or am I going to lose my job? And I think that was scary. For all, communications function or not, I think across the board, that was a reality that hit a lot of us. And, friends and family see it in the news and they're like, are you going to be okay? And it's like, I don't know. But I think that's where communications also played a pivotal role. And I think the more we went on our path, like for GE Vernova, it's been, I did the math for some communications. I think it was like 875 days between the announcement and then actually spinning. And in those 875 days, like a lot had to happen to get our business in a position to be successful. And I think the more we saw that as communicators, but also the more that we shared that message with employees to pull them on that journey, I think that helped. Not so much to completely settle nerves because you're always, it's a lot of change. But for our communications team specifically, like we made the decision to centralize. GE Vernova, like you mentioned, Jeff, is multiple energy businesses pulled into one. And the biggest message is we are one GE Vernova. We're not a gas power employee. We're not a wind employee. We are GE Vernova employees. We win as one team. We hold each other accountable. We lift each other up. And so that's a change that has had to happen over the past 2 years. But it's kind of fun to look back and see like, oh my God, communications played a major role in that. And I got to play a major role in that. And 875 days ago, I may have been like, am I going to still be here? And now that I am so proud to be where I am. So.
Holly, you said you were with GE Healthcare for, you say 13 years now. So if you look back 13 years, over the past several years, how has that experience been for you in communications?
Yeah, well, I think, when the plan to spin was announced, it was a very emotional one. Everyone who has worked here and was a part of this company have probably had mixed feelings about it. And, for 12 years, I was part of General Electric, and forevermore, I'll be part of GE Healthcare. So it's been in a lot of ways great. What an incredible career opportunity to be part of the greater company and to be part of spinning off and setting the identity of GE Healthcare and the future that really brings out the best of the legacy from the company where we started.
Amazing. One of the things that was very exciting for me being involved in the process was seeing how communications was involved in the spin of these three companies. And, it's been a long time where, our industry, there's always this desire to have a seat at the proverbial table. And my experience in working through this with you all was that communications was at the table during these conversations and played a very, very important role in the transformation. Taylor, Sarah, you both were very much involved with the use of Staffbase and as a communications platform to facilitate, to be part of the spin. What are your thoughts on, just the role, the importance of communications and how GE viewed communications as a function with, as part of the transformation?
Yeah, I think we've definitely sat in a unique position. My experience in GE Vernova, bringing all of the energy businesses together where before we all operated individually, each business had their own communications team. But during all the change, we quickly realized okay, we're one company, we're one team. We need one place to have all the information rather than one thing being posted on 12 different internet sites. So it was a huge undertaking that looking back now, I feel like I was a little crazy to raise my hand and be like, yeah, I want to lead this for, an 80,000 person company. I don't know who I was back then. But it's been super rewarding to see, we first launched my GE Plus, almost 2 years ago now, where GE Corporate, GE Aerospace and GE Vernova were all together because we were still very much still together. And then last year we flipped it over to, now for GE Vernova, we call it the WATT, as in WATT. And it's been a really helpful resource for employees. And I get really giddy when I meet employees out, at sites and events, and they're like, oh, the WATT, I get it. I have it on my phone, or, I look at it every single day. And I think we quickly realized that having that one source of truth was imperative. And so, it took us a while, and there were trials and tribulations going through it, trying to get 12 business intranets into one, as well as catching stuff from corporate, that corporate was going away. And so we had to do our own thing, and we had to put it on the WATT, or we had to find another place to put it, depending on audiences. And so it was a bit of a jigsaw puzzle at times, but I had a team supporting me from all the different businesses who I could not have done it without them, for sure. But all the way through, it was clear that, leadership stood behind us. Leadership saw the importance of communications and what we do, and what this intranet and app can do for employees. And I think that realization gets deeper as we go along. One of our senior leaders yesterday was like, oh my God, don't kill me. I didn't look at the WATT. I haven't looked at the WATT since January, but oh my God, the amount of stuff you have on there is phenomenal. We need more people to use it. So having that backing is also just super important, and just makes me feel good that, I can leave my little piece of Sarah on GE Vernova forever.
Amazing. Amazing. What about you, Taylor?
Yeah, no, I definitely, I think, Sarah, you summed it up quite beautifully, in that you referenced a jigsaw puzzle. I think with GE Vernova, it certainly was a challenge to bring 12 separate businesses together. And I think for Aerospace, we faced similar challenges in that, we were really putting a lot more emphasis on focus. Formerly, we were GE Aviation. Then we became GE Aerospace, and a lot of people ask, what's the difference? And the difference is how we're innovating, and the focus that we're emphasizing on our business, and how we're inventing the future of flight, and we're lifting people up and bringing them home safely. And I think with communications and how it plays such an integral part in that narrative, we want our employees to recognize that, the legacy of GE, the history of GE is super valuable, super important. We have a 130-year history, but the future is now. And communications has been part of playing the role in that narrative of, the future is now, and we are coming together as one focused organization. And, we're starting a new narrative for the future. So, as far as internal communications go, we needed to get all employees on board with this transition, because unfortunately you cannot spell change without GE. So, there's a lot of change that is required in such a, and a change with this magnitude. There's just a lot of transitions that were going on, and the communications piece of that was really, really valuable, because not only did we have to change the way people did their jobs, but we also had to get that buy-in to continue the belief in the future of our company. I think internal communications played a really strong role in that. So super grateful, again, to Sarah's point. We had a lot of backing with leadership, and I think implementing a tool like Staffbase in our employee communications made that transition not only easier for employees with this change, but also things were more efficient for the employee communicators. So it was certainly a win-win experience that we're really thankful to have been able to work on.
So cool. So Holly, I was thinking, so GE Healthcare has been independent for much longer than both GE Vernova and GE Aerospace. Over a year now, I think it's been. And obviously, there's been time for things to settle and to become more regular. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about the communications function within GE Healthcare, how it's organized, the importance, how the company views the importance of communications, internal communications to the success of the business.
Sure. So we did spin January 3rd, 2023. So it has been a bit more than a year. And our CEO says that day, every colleague at GE Healthcare was promoted. I mean, the layers above us had been removed, and that means as a founder of this company, we all are very invested and our impact is even greater. There's deeper visibility into every single colleague's work here, and we need to take that very seriously. So at GE Healthcare, today, our Chief Communications Officer is a member of the CEO's staff, and we are still very much, our function is still very much made up of communicators who support specific areas of the business. In addition, we have an enterprise-wide internal communications, enterprise-wide external communications. We're standing up more capabilities as a standalone company, such as we just announced a few weeks ago, we have our own foundation. Prior to the spin, we didn't have our own investor relations team, and now we do. And so internal communications is working. We've always been a business partner throughout my whole career here. Now we have more business partners, and we are a strategic counselor to those folks, whether it is members of the investor relations team, or also there's an entire transition team who is still responsible for, while the spin actually happened, the separation is still very much a journey. And we are still developing our own policies, separating our tools and systems and things. And so internal communications, we have more business partners that we're working with to help our colleagues along that journey.
You talk, Holly, about this major transformation, the change that you're still experiencing today. I'm just curious. The communication surrounding that change is really, really significant. And how did technology help in that change, in that transformation? And what did you all have to do by way of dealing with the change management communications?
Yeah. Well, we had always had some version of an intranet or internal communications platform, but especially in the months leading up to spin and the transition journey that we've been on ever since, having a 24/7, 365 location for all our communications. And the fact that it serves as a front door to so many of our other new tools. It is so important to have something in place that people can access whenever they need it for whatever they need it, whether it is to access a different tool or to catch up on the latest changes or just to engage with each other. So many of us are still remote. It's still a very important connection point for all of our colleagues.
I think I would just add to that, Holly, like the piece about the employee engagement. I mentioned earlier where, we had to kind of garner employee spirit and excitement about this change, because while such a a change of this magnitude is happening, it's easy to kind of get lost in all of the changes. So ensuring that employees felt excited about the change and were ready for the next chapter of our companies. I think that, having a platform where employees could go to post a photo on a social wall from their favorite moment in 2023, or a photo from, what they're doing to celebrate the launch of GE Aerospace, those sort of opportunities, not, of course, to communicate the change and ensure that employees feel supported through changes like that, but also to ensure that they felt engaged and excited. It just really served as a great home base for employees to ask questions and get involved with things that they were excited about. And we're just really grateful for, the opportunity to have something like this where employees could, really feel supported.
Right.
I'll add one more layer on top of that for us. I think because we were the different challenge than GE Healthcare and GE Aerospace, in addition to employee engagement, which we obviously love to see it, for us, it was a lot of education too. If you sat in the GE gas power business for 30 years of your career, now, you're looking at our wind businesses or grid solutions or power conversion or even software, and you're like, what the heck do they do? Like, how do they mesh with us? And so I think having our platform has really opened the door, and as much transparency as possible so that all employees, no matter which business you sit in, we're all one GE Vernova team. And, you can learn about the big deals that are happening in, the wind business, or the big deals that are happening in hydropower, or, just learning the industry, because it's a different industry, it's a new industry for us. I think that was a huge, huge deal for our employees. So, they can better understand what we do as a whole. So then, I think back to sitting at Christmas with my grandma, and grandma's like, oh, how's work? And, I can tell her, like, this happened in gas power. And, our chief sustainability officer just met with the minister of energy from Iraq. And, like things like that, I think are really cool. And employees to be able to see everything across the business. It's really, really important to us.
Great. What, we have a few minutes left. You all have years of experience now. You've seen so much more than most in the industry have seen. Anything, in your careers, anything that strikes you as that would be helpful to others who are, looking to get into communications, or are in communications and are looking to, to take on greater responsibility? Any thoughts for the audience?
I can start with that one, and Holly, feel free to build. I think my biggest learning, and I learned it with the Staffbase project this year with Earth Week, which is a huge campaign. I think it's raise your hand. Like, I stood up and said, hey, I want to help do this. I want to learn about this. I think that's it's not always how I used to operate. And so I've grown a lot and gained the confidence to be able to do that and feel comfortable with that, to lead these things. So I think that's the advice that I give a lot of people is, if you want to do it, raise your hand. The worst that they'll say is no. Sometimes no is a very hard word to hear. But that's what I would say.
I would say that I think it's a common misconception that internal communications means you have a captive audience. And I completely disagree with that. We are still very much competing for our colleagues' attention and consumption of our content. And I think even more than being a good writer, you need change management is a constant part of that. And a big change that we need to do is getting people away, especially our colleagues, away from being in positioned to and conditioned to receive information and instead seek out on this readily available platform the content that they need. And we also have the advantage of metrics that comes with a tool like this to help guide what it is they're looking for. And so, you know, be more than a communicator, be a change manager, is the advice that I would give.
It's great advice.
And just to build one final thought from me, in addition to like a change manager, Holly, I think that was a really great point. But also, like, don't forget to be creative. And that's something that I'm continuing to practice in my professional development. Sometimes I think when we're so close to the work, it gets a little hard to take a step back and recognize the opportunity for to insert some creativity. And that's something that I think is really important to keep, you know, careers in employee communications and working for any type of company fun, right? So it's been a good learning opportunity for me, for sure.
Amazing. You know, I could carry on this conversation for another hour. There's so many topics that we didn't have a chance to hit on. Maybe next year's voices. But you know, I thank you all for taking the time today. This was really amazing conversation. The opportunity to work with each of you and with the new GE entities. All we could say is thank you for this opportunity. I could say thank you for this opportunity, and also just to your organizations, the greatest of success, and to each of you in your work. So thanks for the time. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I think I'm now supposed to hand this back over to Zeke and Athena.
Athena, you already know what I'm going to say.
Another one.
Great session, Jeff. But now we want to hear from you in the virtual audience. What stood out to you the most? Type your reactions into the live chat, but keep it short and sweet, 1 to 2 words max. For me, some things that really stood out that I wrote down was cross-functional collaboration can be key and necessary in ensuring that communication can have the most impact. Also, another one was in times of crisis or big changes, communication can really help ease the fears and concern of people and make the unknown known. This makes employees kind of feel good about the company that they work for because they know that the company will be transparent in times where transparency is needed most. But that's enough for me. Let's see what some of you had to say in the chat. So I'm seeing be creative. What stood out to me the most? Melissa says, raise your hand. Kevin says, every employee has been promoted. The ownership, I've ever heard it. Internal communication does not mean you have to have a captive audience. I love that one. Rachel says, one central place to communicate, serving as a front door to others. Love that one. And I'm also glad that Staffbase kind of had a hand in making this communication strategy a success for them. Thank you, Holly. And also thank you all for all the great comments that you had.
You know what, Zeke? I'm just reflecting because understanding GE's transformation was really important. It gave us perspective into how to manage change in a complex and large organization. Now, when it comes to any change, especially difficult ones, the narrative around that change is probably the most important thing. But what is a narrative? And how can a narrative build trust and authenticity?